Chapter 1. The Enigmatic Guest Emerges. What's up, fam? Welcome back to another chilling chapter. Before we dive into today's twisted mystery, Hercule Poirot and the mystery of the sapphire-eyed cat, hit me up. What made you smile today, and where in the world are you listening from? I'm featuring your stories in the next drop, so don't be shy. Now grab your tea, dim the lights, and get ready. Because nothing in Whispers in the Fog is ever what it seems. The door creaked open with a mournful groan, and from the shadows stepped a figure swathed in a dark cloak. A flash of white glinting from a polished walking cane. The dim light flickered, revealing a grimace that swept across the recipient's face as he caught sight of the newcomer. The air thrummed with an electric tension, and as the clock struck midnight, Mrs. Eleanor Hargrove lay motionless, her lifeless body sprawled across the drawing room floor, an untouched glass of spiced wine still clasped in her hand. The storm outside grew restless, echoing the chaos just unleashed within the walls of Hillcrest Manor. It was to be a night of mystery, and the grand estate, old and foreboding, had gathered its guests. Among them was Hercule Poirot, the distinguished detective who stood apart from the rest. His keen observations were unaccompanied by the flurry of emotion that swept through others. Fear, shock, and confusion twisted the expressions of the assembled. Mrs. Hargrove was not simply a host. Her death meant more than mere tragedy. The elegant decor and lavish surroundings were now drenched in a sinister hue, and Poirot's heart beat with intrigue. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, he mused as his mind began synthesizing the implications of what was laid before him. The storm raged on, its sharp claps of thunder punctuating the palpable dread in the room. Gathering his composure, Poirot observed. The first to react was Lord Arthur Hargrove, the distraught husband, who stumbled over to his wife's body, his hands shaking as he touched her cold cheek. She was ill. I didn't think, he faltered, his words trailing off, heavy with regret, yet laden with perhaps something more than sorrow. The young widow had shocked him, but it had been her ever-watchful, inscrutable ways that had unnerved him even more in the time preceding her passing. Poirot noted the guilty look lingering in Arthur's eyes. Beside him, Brigitte, the couple's beautiful housemaid, stood petrified, her hands trembling. They were but scars of fear, or were they unveiling something more sinister? She possessed a fierce loyalty to Mrs. Hargrove, who had taken her in during darker days, yet whispers of discontentment were never far from her lips when she told tales of the manor's overbearing finances. I didn't hear anything, she stammered, her innocence now shrouded by suspicion. Could her feelings towards her employer have festered into something far more dangerous? Poirot wondered. Then there was Mr. Cedric Morrow, an old family friend, whose jovial demeanor now lay in sharp contrast to the despondency enveloping the gathering. The flicker of candlelight cast playful shadows over his sharp features, their fluid movements betraying an inner tumult. He served as Mrs. Hargrove's confidant, rumored to be the sole keeper of her deepest secrets. It is outrageous. We must inform the authorities, he exclaimed, feigning disbelief. But beneath it lay a flicker of something else, something potentially treacherous. Poirot caught the slight twitch of his lips and the narrowing of his eyes. Here was a man fighting to maintain an image, yet buried beneath his laughter could lie resentment or ambition. Gently, Poirot moved amidst the group, allowing his sharp mind to weave an intricate web of possibility from the confusion that engulfed them. Mon cher ami, I beg your patience. This chaos shall call for reason, he declared, cutting through the clamor, an immovable rock amidst the tempest. The words had barely escaped his lips when the silence was shattered by a flash of lightning. A cry escaped Mrs. Hargrove's cousin, who had been lurking in the corner, pale and shaking. I saw her. She was speaking to someone before. Her voice trembled as all eyes turned towards her, narrowing the scope of suspects in disquieting ways. As the storm rumbled, Poirot began to piece together apparent contradictions. An argument about family finances echoed in the air, capturing Arthur's fraying temper, and yet there was a cold indifference, a distance that contradicted a grieving man's heart. A misplaced coat lapel was discovered under a nearby chair, and beneath the chaotic aura, a glimmer of suspicion toward Mr. Morrow grew. What financial secrets lay entwined between him and the deceased? Yet just as the suspects took shape, their narratives convoluted into ambiguity. Brigitte's past, adorned with poverty, bore an urgency that made Poirot question, did her loyalty tease her? Loyalty towards vengeance? With every question he posed, every flinch he observed, he drew nearer to the truth, but the complexity of the enigma became all the more pronounced. In the depths of the night, Poirot paced the drawing room, where shadows danced upon the walls like ghosts of memory. The itches of doubt clawed at his mind. Could perhaps Cedric's charming nature disguise a darker hunger? Or had Brigitte, once filled with love for her benefactor, turned to an unforgivable betrayal? Not. Even the whispers of the wind could drown out the pulse of truth that beat within Poirot's ears. The pieces were there, yet the picture evoked chaos. As the hours pressed on, the tension grew taut like a string drawn to its breaking point. Then amid the churning storm, a glimmering thought struck Poirot, a shocking realization. A string of interconnected motives, a dual betrayal veiled with dark desperation, lay before him in plain sight, hidden by the furies of human emotion. He would need a moment, but to untangle this web of deception, he required the heart of his suspects, for the answer hid beneath an ill-fated alliance. When at last a sense of resolve settled upon him, Poirot summoned the group together once more to reveal what turned out to be only the first layer of the crime. He stood tall, the gravity of the situation uncoiling around him as he prepared to expose the threads that bound them all. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, he echoed once again, knowing, with dreadful certainty, that his own heart would be forced to confront the deepest betrayal of all. How poetic it was! Amid the splendor, amidst the treachery, true love may yet ignite a darker flame. Something inevitably precious had slipped through their fingers, a fatal flaw lurking behind the masquerade of fidelity. And within the shadows, the real essence of fear now lay in wait, twisting their fates within the claustrophobic embrace of the storm-soaked manor. Chapter 2. The Whispering Shadows. The storm outside lashed against Hillcrest Manor like a vengeful spirit seeking entry, each raindrop like a piercing scream against the world. It was in this unholy tempest that the very fabric of sanity began to unravel, for when the clock ticked its mournful toll, another scream pierced the veil of night, a cry so chilling that it seemed to freeze the very air in the drawing room. "It cannot be!" echoed the terrified voice of Lady Agnes Hargrove, stepping back into the dim light. Her face drained of color, eyes wide with disbelief. A shadow swirled behind her, catching the candlelight in a glimmer of malice. Poirot, ever attuned to the nuances of human emotion, felt his heart quicken at this new development. The gathering had descended into chaos once more. He could scarcely believe that the night's horrors had escalated even further. As he surveyed the assembled guests, a flicker of suspicion ignited within him. Who among them could harbor such darkness? Mon ami, he mused, to himself. The human heart, it holds the capacity for both love and treachery. It is here, in the very shadows, that the truth conceals itself. Horrified whispers filled the drawing room, drowning out the furious storm outside. Lady Agnes was standing stoically, her gaze shifting from the flickering candle to a figure lying motionless beside the grand piano. It was Mr. Cedric Morrow, the erstwhile jovial family friend, now pale and rigid as if posing for a macabre portrait. The spouted chalice lay shattered next to him, crimson liquid pooling like a sinister oasis on the polished floor. As Poirot approached the scene, every detail intensified: the pungent aroma of spiced wine, the damp chill of fear, and the petrified expressions surrounding him. The remaining guests huddled together, uncertain and fearful. Lord Arthur Hargrove, now bereaved of his wife's presence, appeared utterly broken, clawing at the air as if to summon his own lost hope. "This is madness," he exclaimed, his voice cracking, revealing volatility beneath layers of grief. "Now, Cedric, how can this be happening?" Then there was Brigitte, the housemaid whose previous loyalty to the Hargrove family now seemed laced with trepidation. Her eyes darted between Poirot and the deceased, suggesting an internal battle. Could guilt ripple beneath her calm facade? I didn't hear anything until the scream, she stammered, her breath quickening. I was just in the kitchen, cleaning. Yet within her delicate frame was a strength that spoke of hidden depths. It was Miss Julia Hargrove, Mrs. Hargrove's cousin, who drew a sharp intake of breath and sought to steady her quivering hands. I saw him, Cedric. He had gone into the study earlier. I thought he was waiting for something. Her haunted expression told of past alliances now marred by suspicion. Light danced in the shadows of the room, playing tricks on the mind, and Poirot felt the weight of their collective anxiety bearing down upon him. Ah, but we are but a veil of misunderstandings, my dear friends, he declared, steeling himself to restore composure. There are answers to be sought amongst the chaos. Let us engage our minds to unravel this sinister thread. As he began to ask questions, Poirot parsed through the cacophony, deciphering the tangled emotions of the occupants within the manor. He ventured into the study, the air dense with despair, illuminating the secrets lurking behind the closed doors. My friends, tell me of the last moments of Mr. Morrow. What can you recall? The gathered guests hesitated, exchanging anxious glances, and one by one, they ventured answers laden with inconsistencies. Lord Arthur spoke of a recent argument he and Cedric had shared regarding financial matters, new debts on the manor pressing upon them like a noose. Perhaps it was mere chance, he asserted. He owed me money, but we had resolved that. I swear his voice faltered, betraying him further. Brigitte, her hands trembling, recounted a conversation between Cedric and Mrs. Hargrove moments before her death. She was upset. He had said something that, her words faltered, but I didn't think he would take it so far. We all knew she was ill. A fearful glance directed at the floor spoke volumes of her own insecurities. Yet it was Miss Julia's sudden boldness that caught Poirot's discerning eye. There was a matter between them. Mr. Morrow was to inherit something from her. Perhaps it incited jealousy. Perhaps it bred a deadly ambition. Her voice echoed through the thickening tension as she fidgeted, a guilty conscience barely hidden behind her bravado. Gathering these breadcrumbs of information, Poirot's mind whirled, sifting through fragments of emotion and deception. Cedric's death opened layers of complexity, financial entanglement, familial loyalty, and whispered temptations resurfaced. To the untrained eye, he appeared to hold the secret, a beloved friend participating in a deadly ballet of avarice. However, Poirot sensed a deeper bond betrayed by the weight of their ties. As the storm howled, sending shivers through the manor, Poirot's intuition detected one final thread, requiring unraveling, the mosaic of a silent betrayal. It was here, amidst the arcane shadows, that he discovered it. The lingering presence of doubt tangled deeper than the fabric of their lives, not bounded merely by finances nor ambition, but intertwined with desires. The ultimate allegiance had been scribed, within hearts turned dark. The truth erupted forth from Poirot as he gathered the group one last time amidst the chaos, his gaze sweeping across the assembly. Friends, the puppet strings of fate are not merely severed, they are twisted intricately, for the heart is a tempestuous warden. Mr. Morrow's death was not an isolated incident, but a revelation of much deeper conspiracies. The silence grew thick with the weight of his declaration. With each revelation, Poirot unveiled the twist. A red herring dangled before them led not towards Mr. Morrow's jealousy, but rather a betrayal veiled behind the guise of both love and trust. The true antagonist emerged, cloaked in loyalty, yet nurtured in spite. The final betrayal glimmered within Miss Julia's eyes, revealing centuries of coveted family inheritance poised against the price of love. Tears betray the intentions of the heart, he sighed gravely, watching their expressions change as the truth descended upon them, leaving darkness in its wake. As the echoes of dismay filled the drawing room, shadows danced upon the walls, revealing secrets that would haunt them long after the storm had fled. Poirot lingered one last moment in their midst, pausing to observe their shattered illusions. Ah, but the heart! It is but a fragile vessel of murky waters. Trust, my friends, is more daring than any act of betrayal. With that final parting thought, he turned away, feeling the weight of the night's revelations lingering in the tortured hearts behind him, shadows whispering their secrets into the unforgiving dark. Chapter 3. The Sapphire Disappearance. The moon hung low in the sky, cloaked in a veil of ominous clouds, casting long shadows that danced eerily across the grand halls of Hillcrest Manor. It was a night thick with foreboding, where every creak of the floorboards echoed like a death knell, vibrating through the marrow of those within. As a distant rumble of thunder rolled in, a scream carved through the stillness, shattering the fragile facade of calm. "The Sapphire! It is gone!" cried Miss Julia Hargrove, her voice a piercing blend of panic and disbelief, resonating through the manor's ornate chambers with the ferocity of a tempest. Poirot, drawn to the source of the commotion, entered the drawing room where the guests stood clustered in a tableau of shock. The flickering candlelight illuminated their pallid faces, casting grotesque shadows that hinted at unease and suspicion. The atmosphere crackled with tension, each guest's eyes darting nervously from one to another, like prey sensing the approach of a predator. In the center of it all, a delicate glass display case stood open and empty, a mere shell of its former majesty. Inside it had housed the exquisite blue sapphire pendant, an heirloom of the Hargrove family, its beauty as legendary as its storied past. "Mon ami, the heart of this mystery beats once more," Poirot murmured to himself, shifting his gaze from the bewildered faces to the abandoned case. He felt the stirrings of intrigue dance within him. The sapphire, a symbol of wealth and legacy, had vanished just as the prior night's deceit had unveiled itself. It was clear the tendrils of treachery continued to weave through the fabric of the household. Among the gathered guests, Poirot's keen eye caught the flicker of emotions beneath their mask of shock. Lady Agnes Hargrove, still reeling from Cedric's sudden demise, clutched the drapery, her demeanor suggestive of deeper affliction. Beside her, Lord Arthur sat with the weight of despair upon his brow, his fingers tangled in his hair, revealing a vulnerability seldom seen. Meanwhile, Brigitte, their loyal maid, hovered in the background, her eyes betraying a mixture of fear and perhaps something darker. A fleeting guilt, perhaps? "So it appears the sapphire has vanished into the void," said Poirot coolly, observing their reactions with unyielding scrutiny. "But tell me, my friends, who amongst you last beheld this precious artifact?" A murmur rippled through the gathering. Julia, her countenance pale beneath a veneer of resolve, spoke first, her voice steady despite the chaos encircling them. "I last saw it this afternoon, right before the storm began. The display case was locked and secure. I had meant to remind everyone of its value." Turning towards her cousin, Lady Agnes, a flicker of accusation marred her tone. "Is it not true, Agnes, that you wish to safeguard it from the tempest as well?" Agnes's response was lightning quick, her eyes narrowing. "And where were you, Julia, when the storm descended?" "You had retreated to your room, concealing yourself while we weathered the chaos." Poirot noticed the tension winding tighter in the room, a pulsating strain growing with every word spoken. It was in these moments that he caught Brigitte's sidelong glance, filled with uncertainty, seemingly directed at neither Agnes nor Julia, but rather at the disheveled figure of Lord Arthur. There was something remiss there, a connection poised beneath a thin veil. Poirot's mind whirred, examining the pieces of this intricate puzzle. "Ah, my dear friends, allow me to weave the threads of our inquiry," he declared, his voice resonating with calm authority as he began his investigation. "The sapphire's loss is merely the surface of this storm. Let us tread carefully and reveal the currents that hide beneath." As the hours slipped by, Poirot engaged the guests in a delicate dance of questions and answers. Each revelation punctuated by gasps and furtive glances, he meticulously observed every mannerism, every hesitant reply. Arthur's demeanor, once shattered by grief, now bore the sheen of calculated resolve. His past entanglements were certainly not without complications. He spoke of Cedric's debts, the latest of which directly implicated him in a web of financial mismanagement. Yet above all, one detail gnawed at Poirot's instincts. Why had Cedric intended to bequeath an inheritance solely to Arthur? Next, Brigitte, the loyal maid, proved a quarry deserving of attention. In her subtle fidgets, Poirot perceived a flicker of unease. What lay behind her previous expressions of loyalty, as if they masked something perilous? When questioned, she faltered. I often kept an eye on the display case when things turned turbulent. I was always close by, but I swear I never touched it. As Poirot delved deeper, he encountered another cast of characters lingering in Julia's narrative, a shadow among the light. The notion began to unfold that not everything was as it appeared. Betrayal ran thicker than blood in this family, hidden behind veils of affection. As he pieced together fragments of the evening's revelations, a shape-shifting web of alliances, grievances, and secrets emerged, threading toward an unforeseen climax. Just as Poirot's understanding began to crystallize, a sudden brainwave struck him, a forgotten detail that yanked at his mind's edge. What of the catacomb-like cellar, mon cher? Surely it has not escaped your forgetfulness? He pressed, noting the movements of the guests, who at once became noticeably flustered. A gasp escaped Julia. The cellar? No, I do believe it would be of no consequence. The protest came too quickly, fueling Poirot's resolve. He suspected, perhaps foolishly, that the Sapphire might have ventured downwards, swallowed by the very foundation upon which their tumultuous lives were. Built within moments, his intuition was rewarded. Unbeknownst to all, ghostly shadows cradled secrets beneath the old manor. As Poirot descended into the depths, the whirling shadows became his companions, while the ominous storm overhead raged like a tempest of old secrets laid bare. It was there that he found the Sapphire, glimmering ominously atop a mound of dirt buried deep among the cellar's recesses. Just as he returned to the surface, gasping the damp air, a startling realization gripped him, a dark premonition twisting him at the gut. Ah, but the heart, it harbors many truths. A betrayal so deep, cleverly concealed, lies at the behest of our dear Julia, Poirot exclaimed, turning towards her. The storm outside roared as if affirming his condemnation, amplifying the tension in the room. Julia, the heart's elaborate masquerade cloaks an unspeakable act, he declared, watching the dawning horror unfold upon the faces of those gathered before him. Unraveling their bonds of family, he revealed her intricate plot. The Sapphire was not merely desired. It was meant as a bargaining tool against the family's fortune, meant to silence witnesses in her esteem. But as Julia stepped back, panic staining her features, Poirot's voice cut through the chaos with acoustic grace. Not merely an heirloom, dear Julia, but the catalyst of a legacy meant to shift in your favor, a clever stroke of devotion turned lethal. With the truth unveiled, all faces remained rigid with disbelief. Yet, even then, Poirot leaned further into the darkness that enveloped them with his final revelation. And thus the heart is revealed not solely by its wants, but by its fears. You, Lady Agnes, sought to protect the legacy, and in your silence unleashed the treachery cloaked as love. The room fell silent, save for the relentless patter of rain slapping against window panes. Julia's betrayal stretched like an unending shadow, replete with the weight of shattered trust now imbued within the pallor of mourning. Ah, but the heart, it is a treasure, my friends, yet it is not without its thorns. With those last words hanging heavily in the air, Poirot turned, his heart heavy with the sorrow of those entangled in a web of betrayals. The echoes of their trust now diminished beneath the whispers of the storm. Chapter 4. A Clue in the Garden. The night draped Hillcrest Manor in an oppressive silence that seemed to press in on every corner of the ancient estate. Unexpectedly, a violent flash of lightning gouged through the sky, illuminating the bedraggled garden for a fleeting moment, revealing the scene of a chilling crime that had yet to be discovered. Poirot, drawn by an instinct deep within, stood at the garden's threshold. In that fleeting moment, the shadows bled into one another, suggesting unspeakable secrets buried within the soil. Ah, but the heart, it is a treacherous vessel, he murmured to himself, keenly aware that something utterly unsettling lay just beyond the threshold of mere garden foliage. As he stepped over a creeping vine, the air held an electric tension, reminiscent of a live wire. His sharp gaze swept across the ground where the earth bore witness to a violent struggle, or so it seemed, as twisted roots and torn petals formed the canvas of a tableau teetering on the edge of chaos. With each meticulous step, Poirot's mind reconstructed the breath of secrets swarming around him. Whispers of jealousy, long-held grudges, and fractured loyalties began to surface, demanding his attention. The suspects gathered around the flickering candlelight of the drawing room cast uneasy glances at one another. Lady Agnes Hargrove, still clad in mourning attire, spoke with an air of pretentious propriety, yet her fingers trembled. "Poirot, we simply cannot stand here while the rumors march forth like dark armies. It is unfathomable that such a tragedy could infiltrate a night already marred by betrayal." Her eyes darted toward her cousin, Julia, who stood a little too close to Arthur, her calculated demeanor betraying a depth of ambition and secrecy. She offered a sidelong glance, her lips curling in a smirk that almost went unnoticed, but Poirot savored every detail. "I too feel the shadows closing in, mon ami," Poirot replied, gesturing to their surroundings. "But emotions, like shadows, can distort the clearest of truths. Tell me, which among you infuses this night with a darkness I ought to uncover?" Arthur, visibly agitated, clenched his hands as if holding back a tempest of his own. "None of us wished for this chaos. We were mourning Cedric, and it seems the garden now holds even more secrets." His words hung heavy in the night's air, one foot sliding uneasily into the pool of suspicion that swirled around them. "What secrets do you speak of, my dear Arthur?" Poirot countered smoothly, his piercing gaze locking onto him. "Is it not true that you sought to glean all of Cedric's affairs? Was there not a negotiation you wish to pursue?" Arthur bristled at the insinuation, his disbelief wrestling openly with the truth he dared not voice. "He was my brother," he protested, but Poirot saw the nuance in his expression, a mixture of grief and resentment. The tension escalated as Poirot directed his attention back to Lady Agnes. "Could it perhaps be that the two of you held dreams of inheritance aloft like shimmering stars in the night sky? You stationed gracefully among wealth, with nothing to clutch besides. Your pride—" Before Agnes could respond, a gust of wind ruffled the curtains, drawing the conversation into a momentary lull. Poirot sensed the revelation of deeper motivations lurking beneath the surface. Jealousy, ambition, fear. Behind the facade of mourning simmered resentment that threatened to boil over, revealing unspoken truths. With the evening dragging on, Poirot made the journey towards the soft glow of lanterns illuminating the garden path. As he descended into that enchanted yet eerie realm, he contemplated the looming presence of old trees that stretched like skeletal hands into the night. "We shall reveal what lies beneath the green layers of deceit, my friends," he thought with fervor, pacing towards the heart of the garden. Time slipped by, the garden whispering ancient secrets beneath the crimson blooms that swayed unconsciously to the rhythm of the storm. Poirot knelt by a patch where several soil clods had been unearthed, his fingers brushing against the soft earth. "A disturbance here, n'est-ce pas? Even the ground seems to hold its breath. What, I wonder, could lay beneath the scarred surface?" Just then, a flicker caught his eye amidst the darkened foliage. Poirot carefully unearthed a glimmering object, partially concealed, a strange sapphire brooch, its design unsettlingly familiar. The realization struck him like the clang of a bell. "Ah, the very emblem of the Hargrove legacy," he uttered, pieces of the mystery clicking into place. In that moment, he recalled the last encounter with the sapphire pendant that had vanished mere nights before. Betrayal seemed to ripple across this family like a raging river, one secret flowing into another. Red herrings entangled his thoughts as he retraced the connections, the emotional ties that bound them, the dark whispers that wound through the household. The emptiness in their dealings was beginning to reveal a labyrinthine plot, obscured by layers of affection and duplicity. Returning to the drawing room, Poirot re-entered the fray with a newfound urgency. "My friends, I have uncovered something remarkable." With the brooch clasped firmly in his hand, Poirot surveyed the room, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. Eyes widened in disbelief. Each heart began to quicken, reverberating like a drum in a high-stakes game. "Julia," he spoke, locking his gaze onto her. "The piece bears your family's hallmark, does it not? You surely recognized it?" The weight of his words pressed heavily upon them, prompting a series of gasps. Julia's face paled, her heart racing beneath the mask of affluence. "I have no knowledge of its whereabouts. It was never mine," she cried defensively, but the cloying scent of deception hovered in the air. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," Poirot interjected softly, his eyes narrowing in concentration. "The brooch, it connects to Cedric, to your ambitions, and perhaps even your desire to cover tracks through the familial darkness." Before she could respond, Arthur leaned forward, his voice a crescendo of emotion. "Julia, what are you hiding? You claim to have witnessed everything. What truly lies beneath your unyielding exterior?" In this tense moment, Poirot sensed the air shifting, the storm taking on a greater meaning, gathering around them like a tightening noose. The true twist knotted tighter as Julia, cornered and exposed, tried to maintain her composure. "You think me a villain in this story, but I once loved Cedric. I wish to protect a future, not destroy it." The truth unfurled, bringing to light a fractured love that had always moved in the shadows of the family legacy. As Poirot stepped back, he could see the intricate lacework of betrayal cloaked within love, a revelation both tragic and poetic. And here lies the tragedy, dear friends. Love infused with aspiration bore the seeds of sin. The gathered company stood in silence, shock enveloping them like the dense fog outside. In that heavy atmosphere, Poirot's voice rang clear. "Perhaps it is the heart that knows no bounds, but also dares to tread into the abyss." With the climax pulsing through them and the weight of the revelation sinking in, Poirot left them to ponder the depths of their tangled relationships. In their world adorned with riches and respect, the facade now stripped away, and the darkness of human hearts lay bared. As he departed, his last lingering thought echoed in the stillness. A final haunting realization. Ah, betrayal, the darkest flower of affection. Chapter 5. Red Herrings and Tangled Lies. A chilling wind howled through the broken shutters of Hillcrest Manor, reverberating with a sinister barely contained within the suffocating silence. The storm outside mirrored the tempest within, each crack of thunder resounding like the anguished cries of a spirit trapped within the walls of the estate. It was during this tense night that Poirot, astute and unyielding, found himself once again entangled in the threads of deceit. Here, amidst the shadowy corners and flickering candlelight, a deeper darkness lay coiled, ready to strike. As Poirot observed the assembled individuals within the grand drawing room, he recognized a palpable tension hanging thick in the air, infusing each passing moment with dread. Among them stood Julia, her complexion pale as moonlight against the oppressive gloom, her eyes darting as if searching for an escape from the growing scrutiny. Arthur remained, uncharacteristically withdrawn, his fingers gripping the edge of a leather-bound journal, clearly a man afraid to confront his own emotions. Then there was Lady Agnes, her face set in a mask of stoicism, yet her trembling hands betrayed an emotional frailty beneath the carefully constructed guise. "Ah, mes amis," Poirot began, his voice calm yet penetrating as he took his place against the backdrop of simmering conflict. "In this room filled with secrets and fabrications, we find not mere players but tormented souls, each harboring shadows of their own. For what, I wonder, is the driving force within you? Grief, ambition, or something darker still?" The gravity of his inquiry settled upon them, chilling nerves further as he began to draw taut the invisible threads connecting them. The atmosphere shifted as Poirot's keen intuition beckoned him to the fireplace, where a smoldering ember flickered erratically. It reminded him of the flickering trust shared by those present. "Let us speak plainly, my friends. The revelations of the sapphire brooch have laid bare a web of lies that clouds our pursuit of truth. What, I ask, do we truly conceal beneath the facades we wear?" As he spoke, Poirot's eyes flickered like the candle flames surrounding them, meticulously absorbing every nuance of body language and micro-expression. First, he turned his attention to Arthur, whose gaze shifted uneasily. You clutch that journal as though it housed the very essence of your soul, mon ami. Tell me, does it perhaps hold the key to your own aspirations, to inherit more than mere family possessions? Arthur's throat tightened, his agitation palpable. I merely wish to honor my brother's memory, not engage in petty squabbles over vanity. A noble sentiment indeed, Poirot mused, his thoughts racing. Yet sometimes grief can cloud judgment, and soured relationships can lead to unspeakable actions. It was a subtle accusation, but Arthur sagged under the weight of the scrutiny. Lady Agnes seized the moment, her voice rising above the din. And what of you, Poirot? One cannot speak of motives without examining the shadows of our great detective. Perhaps you harbor your own secrets. How many cases have you done away with at the behest of powerful patrons? Poirot's eyebrow arched, but he remained composed, for he understood that desperation could breed irrationality. Crackling thunder punctuated Lady Agnes's challenge, adding drama to the swirling emotions in the room. However, Lady Agnes, I assure you that even I would not stoop to play with the lives of those I endeavor to protect. My only interest lies in unmasking the truth hidden within these tangled lies. As the confrontation swirled around him, Poirot kept a watchful eye on Julia. The young woman shifted anxiously, her expressions betraying the mournful ambivalence of love entangled with ambition. What did you truly desire from Cedric, Julia? Was it merely love or something far more valuable? I loved him. Why can you not see? She snapped defensively, yet the hint of resentment lingered just beneath the surface. He meant everything to me, yet everyone talks about ambition like it was a crime. My life has been entwined with Cedric's fortune for as long as I can remember. The flickering candlelight caught the glint of tears pooling in her eyes. Poirot recognized it as an emotional weapon, a tactic beneath the surface meant to deflect suspicion that lay upon her heart. A web of sentiments indeed, he pondered thoughtfully, but love can also become a dagger when twisted with desire and jealousy. As the probing began to take its toll, Lady Agnes interjected heavily. We must consider that our fears can warp even the most honest hearts into something monstrous. Her gaze darted from Julia to Arthur, the tension escalating with each deliberate moment. What if one among us harbors not just ambition, but a deadly desire to eradicate the past? Just then, a loud crash echoed beyond the hall, sending everyone into frayed nerves and heightening the atmosphere of impending calamity. With a sudden jolt, Poirot turned to spy a glimmer through the broken window panes, a wind-blown letter fluttering desperately against the silken curtain, and in that moment, clarity struck him. In a flash, he deciphered the prior inkling. Cedric's affairs. It wasn't just the sapphire. Something more jagged lay buried in the past. He would need but a glance to wrest the hidden truths from the fabric of reality. Yet what truly ensnared his attention was a detail overlooked by all, a small yet significant crease on Arthur's jacket, tracing back to the previous night's altercation in the garden. 6 sets of eyes were riveted upon him as he pieced together the fragments. My friends, while each of you seeks to shield yourselves from the blame, do we not see that the layers of loyalty and lies create a garden filled with thorns? He steadied himself for the impending twist. Senses, ablaze with the electric pulse of revelation. Julia sought to attain a fortune. Arthur plotted to grasp losses that lie within shadows. Therefore, perhaps it is you, Lady Agnes, who buried the truth, your own motivations so entwined with Cedric's life. The room gasped in unison as Poirot continued, but there lies the intricate dance of human emotion, where deceit wears the robes of trust. A complex interrelation was summoned forth. Julia's ambition, Arthur's grief, and Agnes's wealth, intersecting paths drawing a sinister line across the manor. But just when victory in capturing the hearts of the room seemed within reach, Poirot's own certainty wavered as he contemplated the unruly nature of affection, betrayal swirling like shadows. Could it be that Lady Agnes, shrouded in layers of tragedy, was a red herring planted within themselves? As the tension culminated on a knife's edge, With storms roaring outside like ethereal wails, Poirot stepped back, heart heavy yet enlightened. "In seeking to protect our legacy, dear friends," he stated calmly, an undercurrent of finality settling, "we sometimes weave the very fabric of our own doom." The chamber lay suspended within a breath, shadows swelling as they wrestled with the weight of his words before finally surrendering to the weight of stunned silence. In the labyrinth of the human heart, betrayal often is the most treacherous of allies, and I wonder who among us shall emerge unscathed from this dark garden of tangled lives? As Poirot's voice lingered like a solemn eulogy, the truth bore witness, spiraling into the uncharted abyss of fears long buried, an epilogue waiting to unfold in the depths of a storm still howling outside. Chapter 6. The Cryptic Portrait. The thunder crashed against the sky as though a savage beast were clawing at the heavens. Within the grand decaying confines of Hillcrest Manor, a chilling discovery lay beneath the battered remnants of the once majestic interior. Shadows flickered against damp walls as Poirot traversed the dim room, his astute eyes keenly aware of the emotional currents swirling around him. Before him stood an unnaturally silent portrait, a brooding depiction of Cedric, the recently deceased master of the house, his gaze eternally cast towards the hearth where ineffable stories and secrets had long been smoldering. Why did even the paint seem to quiver under the weight of despair? "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," Poirot murmured to himself, pushing aside the wave of dread that washed over him. The storm outside was not merely a tempest of nature. It mirrored the turmoil encased within these four walls. As he took a step closer, he noted the slight fraying at the edges of the canvas, a delicate tear obscured by the dim candlelight. A portrait that seemed to loom larger than life, holding the truth of 1,000 untold tragedies, it suddenly drew the attention of its beholders. Julia, with her fragile, emotional guise noticeably cracking, stepped into the flickering light that encased the room. Her eyes shimmered like a freshly haunted night. "What does it matter now, Poirot? Cedric is gone, and all that remains is emptiness," she lamented, her voice barely above the murmur of the rain against the windows. Yet the unspoken weight of ambition lingered on her lips, ever so subtly betraying her feigned composure. Was she perhaps masking a deeper yearning for what once was, along with a darker desire for what might yet be? "A void, perhaps," Poirot answered, his mind whirring with the notion of hidden intent. Yet within the depths of emptiness, a person's true desires may rise as very shadows do beneath a flickering flame. The tension between Julia and Arthur, her brother-in-law, reeked of secrets unsaid. A tapestry of grief mixed with ambition so convoluted that one could scarcely grasp the threads of truth. Arthur, seated rigidly across from the portrait, had clutched an old book. Against his chest, his knuckles white with an intensity that bespoke both protectiveness and guilt. "What do you intend to find in that painting, Poirot?" "It is just a painted remembrance of a man long past," he replied, his voice strained, masking the truth that bubbled dangerously close to his facade. The book was adorned with elaborate etchings, reminders of his connections to the past and the legacy he sought to uphold at all costs. "Ah, but the markings of the past are often blurred, mon ami," Poirot responded evenly. "One cannot merely see them. One must observe the nuances. You speak of it as if it were just a relic, yet there lies echoes within it, a cryptic message written in shadows." Stepping back, Poirot considered the three figures present under its haunting gaze. Each one smiled at the portrait in their own way, but he could see that beneath their expressions lay data, all riddled with distress and concealed agendas. Lady Agnes entered the room moments later, her demeanor carefully crafted, yet the tension in her shoulders betrayed her. The match between her clarity and enigma was sharp. "Is it wise to dwell upon things that can no longer be changed, Poirot?" she intoned, her stern face softened only by the wisps of candlelight. Of all the characters whose motivations clung to a past uncertain, Lady Agnes held the darkest shadows within her. An inheritance intertwined with ruin, descended from a legacy she sought to maintain. A final tether to decadence with a sudden determination to draw out the revelations beneath the fray. Poirot's gaze flitted back to the portrait, its painted eyes glistening as if it held weighty memories. Tell me, dear friends, what secrets do you envision as you gaze at the likeness of your fallen comrade, this Cedric? Can a mere erasure of life reformulate the threads between you in such a way that reality becomes detached? As they exchanged nervous glances, Poirot moved toward the crackling fire, where the light flickered, and distorted their reflections, distorted just as their stories had become, each figure a careful construction of weariness hiding masked intentions. The tension thickened like the storm raging outside, as whispers filled the air. Old debts owed, aspirations unfulfilled, and loyalty sought yet never earned. Little by little, with every turn and revelation, Poirot began to untangle the intricacies of Arthur's somber silence and Julia's hidden ambition. But what if, instead of Cedric being the key to your entanglements, it is actually this very portrait that concealed a secret message dwelling beneath your greed or longing? The room bristled with anticipation. Arthur shifted uncomfortably, the fraying edges of his book revealing frayed emotions. You cannot believe that. Ah, but I must. What do we do, dear friends, but betray ourselves in the name of love and loss? Nothing is as it seems. Just recently I caught a fleeting glimpse of injustice brewing beneath mere grief, and your acts, Poirot began to lay it bare. Perhaps the very essence of truth lies in the past of the image, even the brushstrokes. Could it be that the very act of presenting a facade has worked against you? The tension reached its apex as the shadows elongated and merged around them, hints of dread creeping on each individual. Julia's breath caught as she regarded the portrait, her expression traversing the spectrum of emotions. It's not just a painting, it's a curse, a constant reminder of failure, she exclaimed, her composure finally shattering, revealing a vulnerability entwined with her ambition. Perhaps, my dear, you see it acutely. Or perhaps it is your ambition whispering decay into your conscience, Poirot replied gently, but with an edge that sliced through the ethereal tension that hung between them. At that moment, a heavy thud echoed from somewhere in the manor, as if the silence itself had been shattered. Are we to believe that Cedric lingers still? Questioned Lady Tynchun. Agnes, her voice barely a whisper, eyes darting toward the door. Poirot turned his attention sharply toward the shifting atmosphere. As the rain pelted against the windows, a new thread emerged from the tapestry. The haunting notion that Cedric's legacy was more than a mere spirit. It was a portrait steeped in plots beyond even the grave. The palpitating moonlight reared its unwelcome head as Poirot recoiled. His mind wrestled with information buried too deep, perhaps even hidden within the one canvas. With a justified pivot and a renewed sense of clarity, he exhaled slowly. The truth emerges only when one dreads to believe the fallacy it tells, he boldly declared. So, what if it's the portrait itself that holds the key to all these misbegotten entanglements? The revelation hung within the air, shimmering in the darkness. As Poirot's gaze swept back over the gathered suspects, new meanings formed. Julia, with her dreams entwined with despair, Arthur encased in silent grief, and Lady Agnes cloaked in her veiled intentions, each played their role within this tumultuous theater, an emotional tempest disguised by familial love. But as the electrical pulse of the room buzzed within heavy silence, a final twist lingered in the shadows, a revelation that would unlock the devastating truth bound to their hearts. Cedric, a man eternally caught within the portrait, had been the catalyst sparking boiling emotions. Oh, how love can bloom in the shadows, only to rend the fabric of loyalty into splintered shards, each one a betrayal waiting to happen. Ah, my dear friends, as the storm rages outside, understand this. Light shines brightest in the darkest places, Poirot mused, the revelation now weighing heavily as he grasped the hidden thread tethering each relationship. Cedric's memory had been preserved not merely as a pictorial image, but as a mirror reflecting the tempestuous emotional landscape dividing them all. Those tides of ambition, grief, and deception lay bare. Beneath the painted layers of truth, intertwining destinies danced upon the brink of reveal. Dark roots twisted among beautiful blooms of despair, anchored deep within the soil of love. In the tightening space of that dim room, Poirot stood astutely, awaiting the moment when all shadows would recede and the true essence of human nature would beckon from the depths, each beating heart a captive, still clinging to its own cryptic portrait of existence. Chapter 7. The Midnight Chase. The chilling sound of a door creaking open sliced through the silence like a knife, leaving in its wake a palpable tension that seemed to suspend time itself. Rain lashed against Hillcrest Manor, each droplet a frantic heartbeat echoing a deep dread within. For a fleeting moment the shadows flickered around the assembled figures, the candlelight struggling against the encroaching darkness, and then in a sudden moment of terror, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night. It was Lady Agnes, a figure cloaked, in despair, her hands trembling as she recoiled from the threshold. The other inhabitants, Julia and Arthur, hurried to her side, concern etching their features. "What is it, Agnes? What have you seen?" Arthur's voice trembled, bearing the weight of apprehension. "Cedric, he lives!" A shudder accompanied her words, sending shockwaves through the air. But Poirot, his mind racing, noted the flicker of something. Was it fear, or was it madness, dance in her eyes? "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he murmured under his breath, surveying his companions with a scrutinizing gaze. Each of them bore secrets, and with the storm raging outside, the fragile facade of civility began to crack. The screaming silence of Lady Agnes had set the stage for something sinister. Poirot knew he must move quickly. The night was alive with uncertainties and the throbbing pulse of hidden intentions. In the heart of the manor, just as always, stood the portrait of Cedric, shrouded in shadows that danced like an uninvited guest. "We must ascertain the truth," Poirot declared with an air of authority, his sharp eyes narrowing. He turned to Julia. "What do you truly believe, mademoiselle? Can it be that you too sense his lingering presence in this house?" Julia's face paled, her thoughts visibly twisted in turmoil. "It's not for me to say, Poirot, but the idea of it, Cedric's spirit walking among us, fills me with dread." Her hands fidgeted at her side, betraying a deeper anxiety. Poirot's gaze flicked to Arthur. His brotherly concern appeared to mask layers of turmoil. What burden did he carry within? Is this simply a ghost story? Or does fear of repetition reside in your breast as well, mon ami? "Poetic nonsense," Arthur spat, yet his eyes danced with uncertainty. "Cedric is gone. We must accept that." His grip tightened around the book in his hands, the very artifact that had stirred up memories, the living testament of his loss. Suddenly a loud crash erupted from the adjoining room, the sound echoing as if the walls themselves recoiled from the chaos. With urgent determination, Poirot led the way, the others following closely behind. What could it be? The atmosphere thickened, this unexpected dread mingling with burgeoning curiosity. There at the foot of the old piano lay a shattered vase, fragments strewn like the disarrayed lives within this house. But what drew Poirot's observant gaze was not merely the porcelain, but a small, delicate locket glimmering amidst the shards. He stooped to retrieve it, the cool metal whispering secrets now long forgotten. "An interesting find," he announced, holding it up for inspection. "This locket belonged to Cedric, did it not?" The group exchanged darting glances. "You see how the history of the past entangles itself with our present?" Lady Agnes's expression hardened as she cautiously stepped forward. "It should have been buried with him, Poirot. Its loss speaks of only one thing: regret." "Or deceit," Poirot countered, watching her closely as he allowed the implications of her words to settle like dust around them. "The past has a way of reshaping our narratives, does it not? The motive. What does this locket reveal beneath the surface?" Julia interjected, her voice rising with urgency. "You misunderstand, Poirot. It is nothing more than a relic. Our grief twists our perceptions, leading us to darkness." Yet the flicker of emotion in her own voice suggested something deeper, hidden amidst the turmoil. "Or perhaps, my dear, it embodies the secrets each of us has harbored, desires long buried," Poirot replied, carefully navigating the psychological maze before him. He sensed that Arthur's intense silence was more than mere grief. It was a tempest, and he aimed to unravel it. As Poirot rounded the room, he noticed subtle signs of unease. A book misplaced, a chair shifted, all small details that suggested a narrative unfolding beyond their current understanding. With every passing moment, ennui transformed into a weighty anticipation as darkness descended once more. Then, as if orchestrated by fate, a dreadful realization struck Poirot. Perhaps it is not the spirit of Cedric that roams these halls, but the shadow of betrayal, he mused aloud. Tell me, dear companions, who among you would wish to conjure his presence back in such a vile manner? The room fell silent, each character trapped in the intensity of their own implicating thoughts. Just as that, stillness loomed, a loud thunderclap jolted them from their reverie, and without warning, the power in the manor flickered and died. The shadows danced with renewed vigor, now enveloping them completely as the storm outside unleashed its full wrath. Abruptly, a desperate voice called from beyond the door. "Help! Someone's there!" It was Arthur's voice straining against the wind, almost pleading. Without hesitation, Poirot darted toward the door, instincts aflame. What he saw on the other side was more astonishing than the storm. An empty hallway, darkness cloaked around every corner. The sense of having been deceived washed upon him like a wave. Where was Arthur? Poirot stepped outside, his heart racing as he scanned each shadow dancing along the corridor. Suddenly, from the very heart of the night, a figure emerged, a familiar silhouette that dashed away just out of vision. Poirot's pulse quickened. "After him!" he shouted, the night's intrigue pulling him into a relentless chase. As he tore down the hall, fear and determination mingled in this mad pursuit, shadows closing in. He resolved to catch the essence of truth, regardless of where the thread may lead. But just as he rounded a corner, a cold hand seized him by the arm, wrenching his thoughts into concentrated clarity. "Stop!" It was Julia, her eyes wild and frantic, her breath coming out in shaky gasps. "Do not follow him! You don't understand!" "How could I not?" Poirot replied sharply, untangling himself from her. "Grasp. There is betrayal set beneath the surface, one that binds you all." The storm's fury echoed in the distance, matching the raging turmoil of emotions running rampant through the veins of Hillcrest Manor. In that breathless moment, before the truth unveiled itself, Poirot felt the heavy weight of hidden pasts and unspoken tragedies lurking just a heartbeat away. He realized the chase was not just for Arthur, but for the very truths that threatened to unravel them all. And as his instincts guided him through the impending storm, the final twist that awaited him shimmered like light in the dark. A revelation of not just betrayal, but of identities intertwined by ambition, grief, and a yearning for a love lost. In that instant, one thought resonated through Poirot's mind with eerie clarity. Ah, the heart! It is a loyal keeper of secrets until the shadows of betrayal clutch it too tightly, and he plunged forward into the storm of revelation. Chapter 8. Secrets of the Sapphire Cat. The stillness of Hillcrest Manor was abruptly shattered by a single anguished wail that echoed through its darkened corridors, reverberating against the walls as if the very house were mourning. In the flickering candlelight, the shadows leapt violently from one corner to another, revealing fleeting glimpses of dread and despair, while the storm outside continued its relentless roar. Poirot stood at the threshold of the drawing room, his finely attuned senses awash with foreboding, for nestled within that cry was the unmistakable raw pulse of a soul unrecognizably fragmented. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he whispered to himself, his brow furrowing as he steeled himself to delve deeper into this mystery. What twisted secrets lay intertwined in this veritable web of emotions? As he stepped cautiously into the room, he noticed Julia, her face pale as the glimmer of moonlight caught tears glistening in her eyes. She was transfixed at the sight before her. A small, elegant design shining ominously atop the grand mahogany table. It was the Sapphire Cat statue, once a cherished heirloom of the family, now stained with blood that whispered of treachery. Poirot's gaze snapped towards the others gathered in the room. Arthur stood rigid, his fists clenched at his sides, masking a tempest of emotions beneath a veneer of stoicism. One could see a flicker of horror washing across his countenance. betraying the anguish that laid beneath his calm facade. Then, there was Lady Agnes, her mouth a tight line as her composure threatened to fracture. Despite their recent chaos, she appeared fiercely resolute, even while her hand trembled ever so slightly around the link of her necklace. A trinket worn for comfort, likely, but it spoke louder than even her words might convey. With deft precision, Poirot carefully examined the scene. "What transpires here, I wonder?" he queried softly, almost more to himself than to the others. A cherished object, now marred by violence. This sapphire cat, it holds significance beyond its beauty, does it not? His eyes narrowed, capturing the nuances that the others seemed blind to. A glimmer of recognition sparked in Julia's expression, but she quickly suppressed it. "It is a family heirloom," she replied, her voice trembling ever so slightly. "Belonging to Cedric before everything happened." But Poirot's observant gaze dug deeper, sensing a chasm of hidden motives hidden beneath her words. "Indeed, mademoiselle. But what of its recent disappearance? It was said to be lost prior to this dark episode," Poirot pressed, his words unyielding as he scrutinized each individual. "Perhaps this hidden treasure has now returned to settle old debts." Arthur's voice sliced through the laden atmosphere. "It is simply an object, nothing more," he snapped, eyes darting nervously. "We must focus on the tragedy that has befallen us, not dwell on the past." "Tragedy indeed," Poirot countered with tight resolve. "But have you never pondered how circumstances twist together like the cherished vines around this manor, blurring the lines of love, ambition, and betrayal? Each of you flees from the truth, yet it incarnates in this very room." As he spoke, Poirot's keen instincts flared. A brief flick of Lady Agnes's gaze toward the door caught his attention. Why did she hesitate? And why did Arthur's demeanor scratch at the surface like fingernails against wood? Curiosity became urgency as he needed to glean everything hidden beneath their layers of fear. Moments later, the stillness was interrupted by a sudden crash. A door slammed as if propelled by an unseen hand. Poirot's heart raced with both urgency and dread as he led the charge toward the origin of the sound. Outside, the rain fell in torrential sheets, each droplet a reminder of emotion long buried. But it was Arthur who was missing, his absence like a dark veil draping the room. As they stepped into the gallery, shadows shifted. Poirot resolved to weave through the dark labyrinth of intentions as he searched for answers. "Inform me, dear cousins, what did you argue about when I caught you on the threshold of madness?" he inquired, his voice calm yet commanding. "Nothing of consequence," Lady Agnes bristled, casting hurried glances around her as if expecting answers to materialize from the very walls. "You are mistaken, Poirot. Our troubles lay not in what has just transpired, but in deeper fissures of distrust." Poirot observed the tension that thickened the air around her. "Discontent flows like quicksand. One victim after another will vanish if we do not tread thoughtfully." As he searched their eyes for glimpses of hidden truths, he sensed that the sapphire cat was merely a symbol of deception, a paltry cover for an emotional tempest. Back in the drawing room, Poirot's astute observations of the shattered vase had also yielded something intriguing. An old, peculiar book wedged between the floorboards, dusty and concealed. With a deft touch, he retrieved it and opened its yellowed pages. The smudge of ink against parchment caught his eye. Poetic verses of love and loss? Fascinating. Are these truly from the hands of our own dear Cedric? Or is it just the mimicry of someone yearning for his shadow? He pondered aloud, revealing yet another thread in their tangled destiny. But just as the pieces began to align, a tremor in the room triggered a final crashing realization. The sapphire cat, it had undoubtedly served as a catalyst in unraveling long-held secrets. "Ah, perfidy masquerading as affection?" Poirot suddenly exclaimed, piecing the tumult together in his mind. "Each of you holds the key to Cedric's secrets, intertwined with your own ambitions. We stand upon the precipice of betrayal, don't we?" The weight of companionship buckled under the strain of accusation. Julia's gaze hardened, while Arthur's composure faltered beneath the weight of realization. "You would dare accuse me?" he breathed incredulous. "It is not..." They echo your name, Arthur. The bond you shared with Cedric. Love twisted malefic by the specter of envy. Poirot continued, voice raised. But the air stilled, tension electrified, and as he turned to Lady Agnes, a sinister alternative dawned. Ah, but who else possesses deep-rooted ties to the Sapphire cat, linking you all? Poirot's voice remained steady. Only betrayal remained hidden in this sanctuary. Your burdens have sowed seeds of discord amongst one another. Perhaps it was too late to piece together the comatose essence of love mixed with avarice. Perhaps it was too late. Yet one final flicker remained, illuminating the dark void as Poirot delivered the concluding revelation. From wishful thinking, combined with familial grief, we see the malice, and therein lies the tight embrace of hidden intentions forged between brothers, lovers, and friends. With that, Poirot watched the emotional fabric tear apart beneath the weight of his words, each character ensnared in a web of their own making, as truths poured forth like blood from the once beloved statue. In that chiaroscuro of familial love and betrayal, he understood. The heart, filled with secrets and wounds, ultimately bears itself in the face of devastation. The sapphire cat, too precious to ignore, served as the harbinger of revelations once shrouded in darkness. In this tale, mon ami, we become our own gatherings of shadows. And with those final words, he stepped back into the swirling storm, leaving behind the fragments of broken souls, bound forever to their intertwined fates, like a cat poised gracefully on the edge of fractured dreams. Chapter 9. Betrayal in Plain Sight. The clock struck midnight, its echo reverberating through the silent halls of Hillcrest Manor, a stark counterpoint to the chaos that erupted within its walls. A shriek shattered the stillness, reverberating like a cracked bell, rousing ghosts from their long-forgotten slumber. Poirot stood frozen, a frisson of dread coursing through him as he turned towards the drawing room, where shadows twisted under the flickering candlelight, revealing a scene drenched in terror. The once venerable sapphire cat, now a grotesque symbol of betrayal, lay shattered amidst the shards of unwavering trust. Mon Dieu, he breathed, glancing quickly at the others gathered in the room. Julia, her pallor whiter than the snowdrifts outside. Arthur, his eyes wide with incredulity. And Lady Agnes, her face a mask of resolute calm tinged with panic. Each of them was a tapestry woven with threads of deceit, but Poirot's acute sense discerned deeper fraying than mere fabric. The heart, he mused, might hide many secrets, but fate has a knack of unmasking them at the most perilous moments. Who did this? Julia's voice quivered through the air, shattering the uneasy silence like glass. Why would anyone destroy the sapphire cat? Ah, but that, mademoiselle, is the question that begs for clarity. Poirot replied, his keen eyes scanning the expressions of those present. This incident is yet another revelation to the tide of turmoil sweeping through this particular manor. Arthur shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting between Julia and Lady Agnes, who stood composed yet watchful. We must not dwell on this foolish piece of decor. The damage it has inflicted is nothing compared to the discord amongst us. Indeed, a shrewd observation, Poirot muttered, mentally noting the tension. But consider it. Why now, at this moment, would someone destroy what once brought you together? His voice hardened as he pressed further. Does it not echo the fractures within your very souls, mon ami? After the initial shock subsided, Poirot felt the palpable undercurrents propelling the web of suspicion. Just then, the gusting winds outside roared anew, carrying with them a sliver of the nefarious storm at hand. It was as if the house itself bore witness to the betrayal lurking unseen in plain sight. With adept precision, Poirot commenced his investigation, unearthing truths buried beneath layers of emotion and deception. Julia, it is curious you seem so deeply affected by the cat's destruction. Could it be that your own connection to it runs deeper than mere familial ties? Her defensive posture folded into something frail. It was a reminder of better times. Of Cedric, she faltered, a whisper of nostalgia edging her tone. I wish to forget, to put aside any reminder of our shared history, yet here it lies, the ruin of everything. Cedric! Poirot's mind whirred with connections. A man of dualities, loved yet loathed. He observed the not-so-hidden sorrow threading through each character like an unbroken chain. Arthur clenched his fists, betraying a sense of jealousy that flickered unbidden across the surface of his stoic facade. It is not reinforced memories we mourn, Poirot. It is the ache of loss, he countered, his words heavy with meaning. Yet I ponder, was it loss or something deeper that drove one of us to act? Neither glanced at Lady Agnes, her stoic mask faltering for just a moment, enough for Poirot to detect her latent secrets. And you, he pointedly remarked, directing his attention to Agnes, your propinquity with Cedric remains concealed, does it not? You wear his pendant still, as if it were an invocation to shield you from the shadows. Her expression grew more resolute, but the quiver of her hand spoke volumes. I wear this simply, as a token of remembrance, she insisted, although a spark of fury marred her serene visage. One memory does not equal guilt. And yet, guilt dances in the answers you conceal. Poirot's voice softened to almost a whisper, insinuating a deeper truth nestled beneath her bravado. As the storm billowed outside, so too did the tempest of lies churn within their hearts. With a keen eye for detail, Poirot followed the lead of the storm, wandering through the maze of abandoned thoughts while carefully observing the movements of each suspect. He unearthed the hidden passage of a broken lock, a simple yet profound detail left unmended, hinting at someone's desperation to hide the consequences of their actions. Yet just as connections began to take form, a disquieting truth emerged rather starkly. Lady Agnes clutched a letter, her fingers trembling as the passing glances from both Julia and Arthur stilled the air. What say you, Agnes? Poirot inquired, coaxing her to reveal its contents. Is it not yet time to unearth the truth? Truth, Julia interjected, visibly unsettled. What truth could possibly justify this destruction? We must confront what lies hidden in the shadows without drawing blood. The tensions thickened, weaving a web of emotion. Poirot remained unfazed, knowing fully that the clues danced around him, awaiting the light of revelation. Alas, a mere shadow no longer masked the intentions hidden beneath their diverse facades. In a sweeping reveal, Poirot halted dramatically, his gaze shifting to Julia. But not all that glitters is gold, n'est-ce pas? Have we not considered that the invisible blade wielded from the past can carve scars as deep as any weapon? Perhaps your fervent desire to escape may have led to something even more, dreadful? At once the realization struck, a twist that set the stage for shocking betrayal. Suddenly a shape moved in the periphery, and with a quick turn, Poirot discovered the missing heirloom, a small locket cradled by Julia, its glint unmistakable. Ah, but could you not be perceived as the one seeking to solidify the bonds of trust? He accused softly, watching her face drop momentarily. What? Arthur roared. Are you suggesting she... Poirot interrupted with a measured tone. Only that hidden within such tokens lie secrets buried deeper than we know. A gift, or perhaps a curse. A piece that directly ties to love, loss, and treachery alike. A silence draped over them, confronting the raw, emotional truth. As the tempest howled outside, Poirot could see in their eyes the shadow of betrayal clinging like a palpable fog. The climax neared, an emotional crescendo born from latent duty, scorn, as betrayal dripped from their hearts. Without a doubt, the human heart knows betrayal in the most intimate form. In the final moments, with all eyes glued to him, he revealed that the heart's truths entwine not merely through loss, but an inheritance interwoven with envy. And so it is, revealed, dear friends, that the deepest betrayal lies not across enemies bound in duress, but within the very walls forged by love, a tempest dangerously entwined by ambition. With each word, the web tightened outward, drawing all interlinked threads together until they converged and crumbled before the weight of despair. Poirot stepped back, leaving behind what once seemed unbreakable, and uttered one final line that left them all trembling. Ah, the heart is bound to betray those it holds. Dear, for what is love, if not a dance upon the precipice of anguish? In that heavy silence he turned and left, allowing the echoes of betrayal to haunt the once sacred halls of Hillcrest Manor, where shadows loomed and truths remained forever entwined. Chapter 10. The Truth in the Confession. The storm raged outside, its howling winds beating against the windows of Hillcrest Manor like a restless specter demanding entry. The shadows within flickered through the dim candlelight, casting sinister shapes that danced across the walls. In the drawing room, heavy with the scent of burnt wax and something more bitter, Poirot stood attentively, his mind a whirlpool of thoughts as he contemplated the fractured trust among the guests still lingering after the night of shattered connections. A chilling scream rang through the corridors, echoing like the toll of a death knell, causing everyone present to startle in shared dread. Poirot, with his perfectly coiffed mustache and piercing gaze, knew that beneath the fragile surface of civility lay a tempest born from secrets and envy. Before him stood Lady Agnes, her countenance as pale as the storm-swept moon, gripping a crystal glass as if its fragile form might shatter under the weight of her emotions. Julia leaned against the mantel, her eyes darting furtively, while Arthur glowered from the corner, frustration tangible in his clenched fists. "It is not just the cat that lies broken, but our very souls, Monsieur Poirot," he declared, his voice laden with an intensity that felt like a furious wind. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice calm, a sharp contrast to the turmoil surrounding him. "Tonight is one of unmasking, and yet, do you not sense the weight of guilt suffocating the atmosphere?" A flicker of apprehension passed over Julia's face, causing a fleeting doubt to creep into Arthur's bravado. Perhaps the destruction of the Sapphire cat signified more than mere vandalism. Perhaps it mirrored the inner chaos unfolding amongst them, a precursor to darker truths yet to be unveiled. As the arresting silence settled, Poirot set his eyes upon the rain-slicked window, droplets racing down the glass like the tears of the alone and bereaved. The interplay of shadows played tricks on the mind, and amidst this uncertain ambiance lay his unwavering focus on each character's pulse. Lady Agnes, arms crossed defiantly, revealed only fragments of her truth, while Julia, straining to maintain composure, harbored shadows lurking in her gaze. Arthur's fidgeting only served to augment the tide of suspicion fermenting in the air. "Let us begin with clarity," Poirot declared, his sharpness akin to the crack of thunder outside. "Who among you bears responsibility for this destruction? Surely our dear Sapphire cat must have roused feelings darker than simple cruelties." When no answer came, he pressed on. "Julia, you appeared profoundly moved at the sight of the shattered pieces. Pray, enlighten me. Was your connection to this tragedy merely a reflection of loss, or something more elusive?" Julia's breath caught. "It was merely a reminder of what was lost, of Cedric. It returned to taunt me, Monsieur Poirot." The plea in her voice rang true, yet Poirot sensed a thread of manipulation woven tightly in her lament. "Ah, and therein lies the crux of our inquiry," Poirot said, scrutinizing her every movement. "But you were not the only individual tethered to Cedric's memory. What of you, Arthur? Your palpable disdain speaks of rivalries unvoiced." Arthur flinched, the light flickering dramatically over his face, betraying unresolved scars from their shared past. "It is envy that stirs indeed," he replied tersely. "Yet does it not beg a question? Who among us truly wishes to possess what remains of Cedric? It is the burden of memory that binds us all, not just desire." A hint of desperation punctuated his words, revealing the depths of his internal chaos, the striations of jealousy intertwining with grief. Poirot's keen instincts alerted him to Lady Agnes again. The tension in the room thickened as he directed his gaze towards her. "And you, mademoiselle," he began, assertion lacing his tone. "You have not spoken, but your silence carries weight. Why do you clutch that pendant in defiance? What secrets are bound close to your heart?" Her flinty gaze flirted with arrogance, hiding something profound beneath layers of stoic resolve. "It is a mere token, nothing more," she snapped. Yet the tremor in her fingers spoke volumes. This was no ordinary heirloom, but a remnant of passion laced with resentment. Poirot narrowed his eyes as he probed further, Piecing together the fragmented puzzle painted in emotional strokes, the evening unfolded like a riddle, one moment revealing yet another veil. Poirot interjected quietly as he sensed the currents of guilt merely swirling on the periphery. Mademoiselle Agnes, I draw your attention back to the broken lock we discovered earlier. Would it be prudent to inquire why it too exists as a remnant of your concealed truths? Ah, for a lady so steadfast in her resolve, it speaks volumes when the pieces resemble one another. As Agnes opened her mouth to protest, an unanticipated noise sliced through the air. A lone ticking clock, echoing above the tempest outside, drummed the anticipatory chaos residing within them. But Poirot had other pressing matters to address. He turned to each suspect, their faces illuminated in a cascade of candlelight, intent upon unraveling their murky facades. With every interrogation, Poirot carefully unraveled layers of deception. The irrefutable tension stretching across the fabric of those assembled began exuding the scent of betrayal. Yet amidst the veiled gestures and whispered secrets, one puzzling aspect eluded him. Julia's frantic need to locate the locket, which bore ties to Cedric. Was this a desperate fetch for connection or a calculated step to erase anything linked to tragedy? And then, in an almost electric, heart-stopping moment, Poirot turned sharply toward the flickering shadows, feeding from one misplaced glance to another. Ah, but it matters little what lies in the past. Recent revelations reveal far more chilling truths, do they not? He looked directly at Julia, bearing his suspicions. Your wish for reconciliation may have birthed delusions, perhaps becoming your very prison. In an act of defiance, she held up the locket. I sought hope that this bond might rekindle what once was, she choked out, emotions clashing in her voice. It illuminated the tangled web, but Poirot smiled sagely, delivering the die to fate. The final revelation was within reach. Two conflicting truths, he enunciated softly, choosing his words with deliberate precision. Your sincere pursuit of a bond and the lurking phantom shadows of jealousy entwined within. An intersection of desire and betrayal. Yet what twists most profoundly is the truth of one's own heart, as he glanced at Lady Agnes, the irony unspooling before them. As the atmosphere turned electric, Poirot's voice unfurled as he unveiled the scheme held hostage in their spirits. It was you, Lady Agnes, who sought to sever the lifeline that tethered them all to Cedric's haunting presence. The pendant, a potent symbol of your disdain masked behind affection. Ah, to rid oneself of the guilt born from love fed by abandonment. Gasps consumed the Baratham. Air, each character reeling from the revelations laid bare. And Poirot, with a knowing gaze, stepped back. Tension hung like mist over their disemboweled allegiances. Is it so tragic, then, to betray love in defense of one's hidden hurts? For the heart conceals the bloodied remnants where love not only flourishes, but festers until it crumbles. In that final, poignant silence, Poirot turned away from the tales unraveled amongst the fractured shadows of Hillcrest Manor, leaving a trail of confused souls shrouded in the weight of their revelations. Rest assured, mes amis, the truth lies hidden in the confessions of your heart, inconspicuously wrapped in the foliage of love and betrayal, the shocking finale to your tale. Thus he departed into the night, the storm still raging as the echoes of their undeniable truths reverberated in the unforgiving silence. Chapter 11. The Final Puzzle Piece. The sound of glass shattering pierced through the howling winds outside, echoing within, the confines of Hillcrest Manor like a funeral toll. Poirot's keen hearing, honed over years of meticulous observation, immediately registered the deep, emotional resonance of that sound, a final scream of anguish from a fractured soul. The flickering candlelight dimmed momentarily as he stood amidst the remnants of a tempest, having left behind the harrowing revelations of the previous evening, now entangled in their bitter aftermath. An unsettling chill clawed at the corners of his mind, urging him forward toward the gathering doom. In the drawing room, dimly lit and imbued with a sinister tension, three figures were cast in sharp relief against the darkened wood paneling, the jagged edges of the shattered glass reflecting their faces, which were marred by shame, fear, and something sinister lurking beneath. The storm raged as a backdrop, mirroring the storm that brewed within each heart present. Lady Agnes remained nearest the threshold, her porcelain expression mirrored by Julia, whose anxiety twisted her features into a mask of distress. Arthur was in the corner, shifting restlessly as shadows cloaked him in the guise of a brooding specter. Poirot's sharp gaze swept across them, noticing the subtle movements, the way flared nostrils betrayed held breath, and how fingers trembled when not gripping tightly upon themselves. "Ah, mes amis," Poirot began, his voice a melodious calm that sliced through the rising panic. "The winds do howl, and yet it is within this very room that an even greater storm brews, the tempest of guilt and betrayal that twists your hearts." He stepped forward, keenly aware that each word held weight, for they were not merely entangled in a web of accusations, but bound by shared secrets cloaked in familial love and strife. Poirot knew the fragility of their bond, now frayed and twisted beyond recognition. Are we to pretend that this has not been a night of revelations? The tragedy of Cedric, a man seemingly adored, yet not without envious hearts. And then, the cat. Such artistry ruined, yet it is not solely the cat that lies in pieces, for it is our very souls laid open, exposed to the elements. His eyes flickered toward Arthur. Each of you holds the key to your own truth, yet the sad irony is that often we are ensnared by the weight of our own deceptions. As Lady Agnes opened her mouth to respond, her words stuck in her throat. Her deep breath punctuated the stillness that enveloped them like a noose. Julia's features were taut with tension, reflections of terrified surprise, and something deeper, a glimmer of understanding that she had crossed into realms of darkness she had never intended to explore. The storm outside gathered force, as if nature itself was crafting a canvas for the chaos about to unfold. Poirot made a deliberate move, directing his scrutiny toward Julia, whose eyes betrayed a fleeting glance at Arthur, before her mask of composure cracked. "Ah, mademoiselle, your emotions, so raw and truthful. You lament the loss of not only the Sapphire cat, but of a world that once was. Tell me, is there a foundation of regret laced with spite hidden beneath your anguish?" I wish it were not so," Julia admitted, the words spilling forth, rapid and laced with desperation. "I love Cedric, but he was never my own to keep. I only desired to reconstruct the fragments of my memories. This damned locket haunted me as a reminder of what was stolen." The room echoed her confession, amplified by the beating rain heavy with the weight of guilt and remorse. Arthur stepped forward, his tone carrying bitterness. "But it was not only her loss to bear. We all carry the weight of our regrets, our unmet desires for a life lived without strife. I demanded my due from Cedric, and yet his shadow still lingers like a specter over all our lives." Pointed fingers brushed through the remnants around them, eyes blazing with fervor. Poirot's mind darted from one suspect to the next, stitching the delicate fabric of their truce together, yet, his instincts prickled as an unexpected clue emerged through the chaos. One significant thread tugged at his thoughts, a locked drawer in the study where he had first discovered the broken locket. Who possessed the key to that chest of secrets, now forgotten in the shroud of grief? "Lady Agnes," Poirot interjected, his gaze keenly focused. "You have remained relatively silent. Surely you must hold a piece to this diabolical puzzle." "Silence is often a refuge for those too wounded to speak," she retorted sharply, yet the tremor in her voice belied her bravado. "There are matters of the heart that do not deserve the cold light of day, Monsieur Poirot. Perhaps we are not discussing a mere cat, but a living memory we cannot escape." Her hands subtly tightened around the pendant that dangled from her neck, a truth hidden beneath layers of aristocratic folly. But Poirot was not to be so easily deflected. "Aha! There lies the heartbeat of treachery," he sharp declared. "This pendant, could it be the emblem of the guilt buried deep within your heart? A memory of Cedric transformed into a tormentor? Every piece plays its part in this theater of lament. Your feelings, mesdames et messieurs, are indeed far more complicated than mere emotions. As the storm continued to rage outside, with flashes of lightning illuminating the drawing room, Poirot found a moment of clarity. You see, I have deduced that Lady Agnes's connection to the locket bears intricate significance. Not simply a token of flavor between lovers past, but something that entwines the unearthed hopes and unspoken desires of three souls captive to envy. Yet he knew there lurked a deeper truth, one that resonated with fury and nostalgia as sorrow hung in the air like fog. The clues led to a most unexpected conclusion, and Poirot's sharp mind grasped the final piece, one that reframed everything. Do you not see, my friends? He pressed, beginning to piece the puzzle together before them. Each of you clings to shards of feelings rooted in deceit. But the final revelation lies not in the broken cat or the loves lost, rather in the self-deception that morphs grief into shadows, culminating in the dark betrayal that resides within. The criminal is among us, yet, Poirot shifted, his tone turning more somber. You sought to destroy that which tied you, out of spite and unresolved emotions. For the heart, it harbors the most scandalous of choices. As the final veil was lifted, the room erupted with incredulous accusations and fervent denials. Lady Agnes's defiance melted into something resembling sorrow, and beneath her seemingly composed exterior lay a motive far more profound than mere jealousy. The revelation settled heavily among them, catching in their throats like shards of glass. Every heart held a darkness, yet one stood at the apex of chaos, a betrayal not only of love, but a betrayal of the self. Poirot's sharp gaze surveyed the flickering shadows, and, with one final, poignant whisper, he offered the closing axiom, Mon ami, do not fall victim to your own heart. Its greatest deception lies in making you believe that betrayal can burgeon from love alone. This night, the tempest, it mirrors your anguish, and therein lies the truth you have desperately sought. And with that, he turned, leaving the echoes of shattered bonds reverberating in the air, each character embroiled in their reckoning, abandoned to confront the deep shadows forged from their desires and regrets. The storm continued to howl, as did the hearts woven within Hillcrest Manor, forever left to twist and turn under the weight of their confessions. Chapter 12, The Shocking Revelation. The clock in Hillcrest Manor struck midnight, its sound resonating through the silence like the tolling of a funeral bell, piercing through the heavy air laden with secrets. In the dimly lit drawing room, a shadow flitted across the wall, its presence unsettling, as if the very essence of betrayal had taken corporeal form. Poirot stood still, his sharp eyes narrowed, observing the scene before him, a tableau of tension and concealed turmoil. The echoes of laughter from the previous evening had faded, replaced now by a heavy stillness, pregnant with the weight of unspoken truths and simmering accusations. Lady Agnes sat perched elegantly on a chair, her fingers drumming anxiously on her knee. The candlelight flickered, revealing the glint of an emerald ring that adorned her finger, a gift from the late Cedric, which now felt more like a shackle tying her to a past she longed to escape. Across from her stood Julia, her youthful visage marred by confusion and guilt, clutching an old leather-bound diary to her chest, its contents revealing a past intertwined with the very threads of betrayal. In one corner Arthur loomed, his posture rigid, a blend of fear and defiance reflected in his eyes. Each held a piece of the puzzle, yet no one dared to utter a word as darkness enveloped their ambitions and regrets. Ah, mes amis, Poirot began, his voice calm and measured, yet resonating with an undercurrent of authority. The storm outside mirrors the tempest within. Secrets swirl like leaves caught in the wind, and yet what remains hidden is the truth that binds you all. His gaze pierced through the uncomfortable silence, each character shifting under his scrutiny. The air was thick with tension. Each heartbeat punctuated the weight of their failure to confront the reality that had culminated in chaos. As if to break the spell, a deafening crash echoed outside, rattling the windows, and Julia gasped, her eyes darting in alarm. "What was that?" she exclaimed, betraying her anxiety. Poirot observed her closely, noting the way her hands trembled against the leather cover of the diary. "It is merely the storm's wrath," he replied softly, yet with undeniable firmness. But we must face our own tempest within, for tonight, my dear friends, is pivotal. Thuyo. Attention turned to Arthur as he shifted uncomfortably, the muscles in his jaw tightening with irritation. What do you intend to unveil, Poirot? More secrets? More lies? Do you think we have not suffered enough? His voice, though tinged with anger, cracked under the weight of his emotions. Poirot, unfazed, regarded Arthur with a meticulous scrutiny. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami. Each of you clings tightly to your secrets as if they were life's only treasures. Poirot's meticulous nature urged him forward into the murky depths. Julia, your diary, tell me, what sorrows do you contain within its pages? Her lips parted, yet doubt preempted her voice. With a deep breath, she reluctantly revealed, It holds memories of love and loss. Cedric was my childhood confidant, and I feared the judgment of others. There are truths within those pages that bind me to my once friend, to which I feel irrevocably loyal. As Poirot nodded, he sensed the subtle flicker of guilt in Arthur's eyes. And you, Arthur, you shared a bond with Cedric as well, did you not? Perhaps one twisted by envy and bitterness? Arthur recoiled, his indignation palpable, yet beneath it lay layers of shame. My dealings with Cedric were my own, Poirot. I sought what any man would desire, a chance at freedom from his shadow. Yet it seems your scrutiny reveals nothing but ashes. The pieces were in motion. The suggestions made by Poirot entwined their fates in an intricate tapestry of unforeseen consequences. As we stand here amidst the wreckage of past affections, we must not ignore the symbolic shards scattered around us. A pendant, a diary, a ring. These are potent artifacts that disclose motivations cloaked in emotion. Each time you attempt to pry open the heart, more pain resurfaces. Yet as the storm raged on outside, it overshadowed the disquiet within the drawing room, intensifying the palpable atmosphere. But Poirot's steadiness remained unwavering. He, required only the right iterative thought, his sharp mind darting from one suspect to the next. With a meticulously practiced elegance, he rephrased his inquiries, allowing the pressure of silence to rise like the storm outside. Moments turned to anxiety-filled hours as their conversations layered suspicion atop suspicion, while Poirot observed each nuance, each hesitation, each tremor. He marveled at the psychological games woven within their discourse. You all honor Cedric's memory and yet harbor dark and twisted sentiments. How curious. But perhaps it is time to unearth the deeper truths buried below. Suddenly he turned sharply, staring intently at Lady Agnes. I suspect, my dear, that within your silence lies the key to this chilling web of betrayal. Your connection to Cedric is steeped in complexity, a narrative nightmarishly vivid. Her pallor deepened. She inhaled sharply, her grip tightening upon the emerald ring. It is painful to confront what lies within, she whispered, barely a sound against the howling storm. But before Lady Agnes could articulate her emotions, Poirot interjected. Ah, but what about the emerald itself, my dear? A cruel coincidence. Was it not the lapel pin associated with Cedric's death? A fateful trinket transformed into a token of mourning. And yet, what if I were to suggest that you held a motive far more nefarious? Gasps filled the room as Poirot deftly dove into the depths of their painful confessions. For you see, my dear, Lady Agnes, tales of love and jealousy are oft spurred by unresolved anguish. Therein lies the truth not merely of the heart, but of a betrayal that runs more profound. Suddenly, a loud crash of thunder reverberated through the manor, as if the heavens themselves reacted to his revelation. Poirot, with a flourish, continued, My friends, I believe I have discovered the final thread. There is more lurking beneath the surface. Each relationship forged in shadows leads to a profound deception. Julia and Arthur, tied together by circumstance and tragedy, yet hiding something immense within the far corners of their hearts, as does Lady Agnes. He paused, the flickering candlelight illuminating their faces, each reflecting a cocktail of fear, curiosity, and dread. The truth is, dear friends, the victim was not merely Cedric. Morality became the unwitting casualty as this entangled web closed tighter. With a calculated breath, Poirot directed his gaze to the diary, a narrative laced with longing and regret found in Julia's hands. The content of this diary conceals the real emotions and motivations, yet a singular fragment punctured it all, a hint of betrayal that could expose another motive altogether. Julia, you wrote of aspirations once tender, yet birthed from a cauldron of envy. What darkness lurked at the periphery? With that, Poirot unveiled his final twist, the realization striking them all with the force of the lightning that illuminated the room. Your collective motivation swirled around Cedric, mon ami. But the true twist was not a lone figure eliminating another. Rather, a bond forged in deceit between you all, each hoping to escape the other's suffocating shadow, while secretly still yearning for the very love you sought to destroy. Betrayal arose not just from a singular heart, but rather from the festering wounds of your very souls. His eyes glanced back and forth, igniting the understanding of the assembled characters, exposing the littered emotions they had wrapped in fabrications of love. The horror of revelation arose, culminating in looks of disbelief as their tight-knit web unraveled under the scrutiny of their shared narratives. With conviction echoing through the room, Poirot concluded, "Remember, the darkness lies deep within, and betrayal often blooms from love's shadows. In seeking to escape, you each became entangled in this grim play of emotions, leaving a trail of mourning in your wake." As he turned to depart, his voice carried one final potent whisper, resonating through their shattered lives like a closing requiem. To confront one's heart is a most dangerous endeavor, for it reflects more than mere affections. It reveals the very soul. There lies the true horror of love. With that, he strode back into the tempest outside, leaving them to grapple with the echoes of their fractured allegiances, the thunder resonating with a finality that sealed their fate.